centuries, it has survived when others have failed. This land of boundless mysteries, breathtaking scenery, and fascinating culture is home to a magnificent people. Join us as we boldly venture into the magical wonder that is China, the Celestial Empire. China is a land of contrast. The technology and development in the big cities are as progressive as anywhere in the world today. The maglev train in Shanghai will bring a passenger 19 miles across town in less than 10 minutes. The most exclusive international designer shops line white, shady boulevards. Cutting-edge technology can be found in homes and businesses. At major cinemas, one can see films from around the world in comfortable theaters with sophisticated equipment and surround sound. Yet there is another side to China that is not opulent or economically progressive. In some rural areas, the roads and lifestyles of the farmers have not changed for generations. There are no movie theaters, no corner stores, and no reliable transportation besides feet. In many cases, rural life is an existence without frills and the daily life of constant struggle. As the morning sun begins to rise, Shang Xiangling, along with his wife, Dan, and his assistant, begin their long, tedious trek across the rocky landscape of the Tongjing County in Sichuan Province. This area of the country is sparsely populated, mostly inhabited by subsistence farmers living directly off the land. Here, as with those around him, Zhang and his family live a simple and dedicated life, but they are not farmers. Their route can be treacherous and challenging, requiring patience, balance, and willpower. As they cross the fields and rivers, they each struggle with more than 60 pounds of gear on their back. One misstep fording a frigid stream can destroy precious equipment and threaten their lives. Tonight, when they reach their destination, they will set up their equipment and show a movie. The threesome belonged to the ancient tradition of traveling storytellers. Just as actors, poets, and musicians have done before them, they roam the countryside bringing entertainment, drama, and instruction to the people. But theirs is a relatively new and different form of amusement. These rural Chinese call it tianying, or electric shadows. Zhang and his crew travel the paths that connect villages and isolated farmlands. Often, this is dangerous work. The heavy baskets strapped to their backs hold a film projector, a screen, canister of 35mm film, and a gasoline generator. Everything that is needed to set up a traveling outdoor cinema. Zhang calls the people of the rural countryside together. He recites carefully written lines in a sing-song voice. He encourages young and old to gather after dusk to see the magic of electric shadows dance across a large makeshift outdoor movie screen. Everywhere he travels within this undeveloped region of central China, Zhang must organize helpers to set up for the show. Many have never seen anything like a movie before. Here in Sichuan, among sparsely populated villages, Zhang's traveling cinema is magic. As the sun descends to the horizon, the screen is hoisted up into the air on tall poles and braced with ropes staked into the ground. Zhang reminds people to work quickly. If they don't finish before the sunlight disappears, no one will be able to see anything. The equipment is placed in position, tested, and focused. Even though the films and the projectors are old and outdated by most of today's standards, some members in Zhang's audience are seeing movies for the first time. With the microphone tied around his neck with twine, Zhang's wife turns the pages for him as he reads a carefully prepared welcome and instructions for the audience. For some, the magic never dies, and each time is just like the first. For the villagers, the traveling cinema is an excuse for a party. This evening, he tells the people, please find a seat. After sitting down, don't chat. Please listen to my words. Kids, don't run about. Otherwise, your parents will be worried. Don't climb on the trees or walls. Please don't stay in the center. Otherwise, the people behind you cannot watch well. Don't touch the wire on the ground. Otherwise, you will possibly get an electrical shock. Don't smoke when watching movies. People cannot watch the movie clearly through smoke. Those in the front, please sit down. Otherwise, people in the back cannot watch well. He ends with advice for the farmers. You should watch the science and education films carefully because it is very important for us to learn advanced science and technology. We should farm scientifically. The name Sichuan means four streams and refers to the four tributaries of the Changxing River that flow through the province from north to south. Traveling the countryside requires both boats and bridges. Every river crossing presents both a challenge and a danger. Between journeys, the Zhangs retreat to their home amidst the terrace fields of Tongjiang. Dan Shenzhen, Zhang's wife, is aware that the lifestyle she leads is difficult and requires a lot of sacrifice. But she is proud of her husband. He is well known throughout the area for his extensive knowledge of many different things, both philosophical and technical. In the quiet, Zhang writes his clapper talk and lets his mind wander. Life has a peaceful rhythm.
绣青蛙做田坎，大叫冤枉。当农民做害虫，不好下场。有些人哦，把电筒他就捏在手上哦，见到我就开抓，丧尽天鹅娘。我妹妹被打死，开肚破肠。我妈妈被捉起来，装进了框框，还把我全身的皮皮剥得个精光哦。或是炒卖，或是炸，都说碰香哦。你把我来吃了，都不说长。可水田里却害苦了我儿孙满了堂。我爷爷病在床，面临死亡。我父亲呢，四肢瘫痪，将会遭殃。父亲死，我母亲像呆子一样哦，恨只恨有的人不会算账。到情我能出尽，粮食满仓。
Zhang plans for upcoming shows and draws a slide to present to the audience. But he knows the show must go on. Repairs must be made. He fixes the failing generator before heading back out to neighboring villages. For the Zhangs and their assistant, the risk involved in their travels is inordinately high. Over rickety bridges and along perilous trails, one slip could send them falling to serious injury or death. Their work requires a tremendous commitment and faith in the power of film to elevate and transform lives. Zhang's mother, who has lived through much of the 20th century, has seen a great deal of change and does not hesitate to give her opinion. She does not agree with the risk taken by her son in pursuit of his work. Even domestic disputes revolve around the cinema. It is a difficult enterprise, and Zhang is a man whose desire to help others sometimes leads him to be a bit impractical. Out on the road again, the traveling cinema hitches a ride on a tractor. In a town, they meet up with a local woman who appears unhappy. Zhang asks her, "What's wrong with you?" The woman explains her ongoing quarrel with her mother-in-law, confiding that she believes her mother-in-law is a mean old woman. Later, Zhang returns with a film that he has selected with her in mind. The film is called Happiness Knocking at the Door. It is the story of a younger woman who rebels against her elders. The character on screen boasts, "I can say anything I want. No one can stop me." She is proud and defiant, but as the drama unfolds, she learns an important lesson. At the end of the film, an announcer states that parents are responsible for educating their children, and that, in turn, children are responsible for supporting their parents. The film has a significant effect on the woman. The moral of this story is typical of the films made in China during the 1950s. Zhang chooses the films that make up his shows with great care and consideration for his audience. Film was introduced to China just a year after it was first shown in Paris in 1896. The Chinese called it shadow drama and developed a film industry closely connected to theater, especially traditional Chinese opera. Many Chinese films were versions of the stories of Chinese opera and were often stage performances captured on celluloid. In the 1930s, the Chinese film industry thrived, reaching a height of popularity rivaling that of America's Hollywood. The films that Zhang carries to the people are mostly black and white. Because the audience is rural and poor, ticket prices for the traveling cinema are low. Consequently, Zhang, who rents his films from the county, can only afford older black and white ones. They are the same films that he himself would have seen as a child. These movies were made at a great turning point in Chinese history. This was the China that both Zhang and his wife were born into, and the films that they grew up watching. In 1949, Mao Zedong took over the leadership of China. In one of his first major acts, he called for an official census. Until then, no one was aware that the population of China was skyrocketing, with more than 583 million people in 1953, more than 3.5 times the population of the United States. New farming techniques were introduced to the rural areas. It was an investment in the modern age, in technology and new ideas. It was a break with the past in order to ensure a productive and independent future. It was a brave and ambitious experiment. The Zhangs were born into this tumultuous time in the history of their country. It was a time of great vision, but even greater risk. The history of the traveling cinema in China goes back 50 years. When Mao first came to power, he sent teams of film projectionists across the Chinese countryside to rural villages as the Zhangs do today. Mao used film to educate the people on his new policies and philosophy. Many counties throughout China still have the same 35mm film equipment that was bought for this re-education project some 50 years ago. The films that were made during this period reflected the events of the time. Today, these films are particularly popular in the Chinese countryside. They were modern adaptations of old stories. Most of them were musicals descended from the tradition of Chinese opera. Some of them were propaganda films, intended to introduce the people to the new ideologies. And some are simply educational, teaching techniques for more productive farming or introducing new technologies such as electricity. But the seesaw of optimism and despair deeply affected those children who grew up with the hope and fury of this brave new world as it launched into the future. Today, the Zhangs recognize and honor the power of cinema as a force of change. Despite the simplicity of their lifestyle, the Zhangs have seen immense transition in the past 50 years and have been profoundly affected by the complex waves of hope and despair that have crossed their nation. Yet, as the population of China grows and the economy shifts and changes, the area of rural Sichuan does not seem to be touched by time. This enterprise is a labor of love. Unlike their predecessors in the 1950s, the Zhangs are not motivated by party loyalty or reward. This time, the vision is humanitarian and no longer in connection with the political agenda. Zhang himself is more of an artist than a politician. In his art, he employs the ghosts and the machines of China's recent past.
八段快板大家庭。
Unlike the large cinema complexes of modern cities, the Zhang cinema is personal. Zhang uses the cinema not only for entertainment, but also for teaching.
这番好意应感谢我们向他来致敬。
After all the effort toward progress across the country, this area remains unaware of some of the basic comforts of the 20th century. Today in parts of rural China, despite the attempt at education, electricity is still an enigma and a potential danger. This village has recently lost a beloved son. He died from an electric shock as a result of mishandling electrical wires. Zhang's wife, Dan, tries to console the mother, who is overwhelmed with grief. Zhang brings a film to the village that he feels will help them understand the death and prevent similar accidents in the future. In this way, he makes a generous and insightful contribution to the lives of the villagers. In another town, the traveling cinema is employed to contribute entertainment for a special occasion, the anniversary of an elderly couple. It is a festive celebration, and Zhang plays the flute while gifts are offered. The grown children have requested the cinema as entertainment for the party. When the sun goes down, they watch the film of a traditional story called Five Daughters to honor and show appreciation for the elders. China is a land where ancient and modern coexist in contrast. The culture of the Chinese people is as old as any other on the planet. However, China has undergone more radical changes than most countries in recent history. Wherever they carry their heavy baskets through the countryside, people's lives are touched by the shadow magic that Zhang brings. The plots and characters of each movie are bravely carried along the dirt paths and swollen rivers through the Chinese countryside. With the Zhang's guidance and dedication, the stories unfold and find their way into the hearts of the people. Under the stars and the gentle light of the moon, the villagers' lives are changed for the better.